Welcome to this week's episode of Making the Call. You've got the two Andrews holding down the fort. I'm joined by Rosie, and we are just going to be talking football, and some more football.
Because I don't know anything else.
Well,
Go Mavs.
Yeah, go Mavs. NBA Cup tonight. That might be my one big headline. Who knows? Might be one of them. But Rosie and I are holding down the fort this week. The plan for today, which you already know because you clicked on the podcast, so you saw the title and description and all that fun stuff. But we're going to be running through all the headline stories from week 14 of the NFL season. And then because we've got Rosie on, we've got two fantasy football segments to wrap up the show. We'll do things we wish we knew before the season because the regular season is over. Playoffs start for most people in week 15. And so there's a lot of things that have happened this season that it would have been really nice to know. We would have really set ourselves up for success had we known these things. And then we'll end with league winners because it is the playoffs and there's a handful of guys who will be winning leagues this year because that's always the case, whether it's what was that Jamar Chase year, 2 or 3 years ago when he had like 60 points.
Oh yeah.
Or like the classic example was Alvin Kamara getting 5 touchdowns on Christmas Day. And it's just, okay, well, if you had Alvin Kamara, congrats, you won your championship. I know I lost
place because of Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
I know in the league
I know in the 8-8 league, a few years ago, I got second place to Colt because he had Mike Evans and Tom Brady, and I think they combined for like 85 points or something. It was just absurd. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about guys who that could be this year. So that's the podcast. Before we get into all of that, we're going to start the way that we always do, which is each of our one big headline. So Rosie, I know you gave me a hard time last time because you're like, man, I always go first, but no other choice. It's just you and I. What's your one big headline?
Just me, you, and Craig.
Yes, me, you,
Craig doesn't talk much.
No.
I was hoping that I could get your help and maybe some of the listeners too. Maybe I'll post this on Twitter on the Making the Call account, which you should definitely follow, by the way.
Absolutely.
I barely made the playoffs in a league. I had lots of injuries like Breece Hall, Bucky Irving, Kenneth Walker, Rashee Rice, Godwin. So it's rough. I need to score some points, and I'm having a really hard time with my quarterbacks right now. So one of them is Jordan Love for sure. I'm going to start him. And my other super flex position, though, is either Jameis playing the Chiefs, Kirk Cousins playing the Raiders, or Anthony Richardson playing the Broncos. I want to know who you would start. I'm leaning one way, but I'm definitely not sure.
Okay. Hold on. I need to pull up what Jameis. Because I know what Jameis has done on the field, but I need to look at what his like game log has been as far as fantasy goes, to help with this decision. And I think we should ask, the world what they think. But maybe, and you know what we'll do on this podcast? We'll put a poll. So if you're listening on Spotify, scroll down, you'll see the poll for this episode. We'll ask this question, respond, let us know what you think as we try to help Rosie here. So Jameis, since he took over as a starter, he's gotten 30 points, 15, 31, 15, 44, and then 21 this past week.
He's kind of gotten up and down, and this week could be an up. Shootout with the Chiefs.
And it is
possibly.
Kansas City. It is Kansas City, but it's in Cleveland.
Chiefs defense, their pass defense hasn't been nearly as good as it was last year. But
I
think if you would have asked me this a couple weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, Kirk easy. Vegas's defense is awful, but I mean, I'm sure we'll get to it, but Kirk has not been good. I don't think I can play him.
He's third on this list.
Yeah. which is wild because he would have been first 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I'm kind of wondering if you start Anthony Richardson.
So Richardson, he just had his bye last week.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 weeks prior, he had 28 points against the Jets, 12 against the Lions.
No, that was. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. I follow.
This is 4 point per passing touchdown league, and then 23 the last time he played against the Patriots, and they play the Broncos.
Broncos
are
are
a pretty
good
good defense.
Yeah. That one's in Denver too. What's the weather gonna be like?
That's a good end. Honestly, for both Cleveland and Denver, because it could be bad.
Okay, so the daily forecast. Okay, they play what on Sunday? Both games Sunday? Yeah, both games Sunday. So, 61 degrees, partly cloudy, like no wind. That's in Denver.
Okay.
So then if we go to Cleveland, oh gosh. Cleveland, it's going to be occasional rain in the morning, otherwise cloudy. 13-mile-an-hour winds. So not a lot of wind. So yeah. I don't know,
tough
man.
one. It's a tough one.
I kind of think well, let me ask you this, because you just barely made the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Does 20 points from a quarterback, like, is that going to do enough for you to push you over to the next round? Or does this need to be like a boom or bust thing where you need 30 points, 30 plus to have a chance?
It's really going to depend if Brees Hall starts and Bucky Irving, because my replacements for them. We want to run through my team really quick. Why not?
Sure.
So this is Dynasty League. Running backs, James Conner, Jahmyr Gibbs. Wide receivers, Hopkins, Juwan Jennings, Mike Evans. Tight end, we have Cole Kmet or Dalton Kincaid if he plays. Then flex, either Kenneth Walker or Jameson Williams. I don't think Kenneth Walker is going to play. Then it's Brees Hall, Bucky Irving, Jordan Love. So, like,
here's what
not awful, but I feel like I would need more than 20 points from Jameis or A-Rich or
Kirk.
Kirk.
That's my thing, is that if you need 20 points to kind of move on, then I think you go with Richardson. But if you're like, I need like a real boom performance, you go with Jameis.
Yeah.
Because I think Jameis gives you more upside. But I think because of the rushing, Richardson gives you a higher floor.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it later. But Anthony Richardson hasn't been running as much as I would have liked.
He hasn't been doing a lot of things like we would have liked.
Yeah.
All right.
What's your big headline?
Mine is breaking news as of Tuesday night, which is that the Rangers have re-signed Nathan Eovaldi. So they signed him to a 3-year, $75 million contract. So you have to think that he is likely going to end his career here in Texas, which I think is awesome. He won a World Series for us. He was so good in that World Series run. He was just, it was absolutely incredible. And honestly, like, one of the coolest moments of my like sports going life was that Game 3 when they clinched the sweep against Baltimore to go to the ALCS. Alex and I went to that game, and Eovaldi was on the mound, pitched 7 innings, got a curtain call, was just, pitched jam out of jam out of jam, and like was awesome. And so he wanted to be here. Clearly, the Rangers wanted him back. I'm glad they figured something out that worked for both. I'm stoked about this, because now you look at the Rangers rotation in your top 3. Obviously, all of this is barring health and injuries as with like any rotation, but especially one that has Jacob deGrom. But you look at your top three and you've got Uvalde, deGrom, and Kumar Rocker. And that's the three guys you're anchoring your rotation off of. And then you figure out which of the following fills out your 4 and 5 spots. Tyler Mahle, John Gray, Cody Bradford, Jack Leiter, Dane Dunning. So it's very deep. There's some question marks about some of these guys, but being able to have Uvalde at the top, I think, is awesome. And hopefully the Rangers aren't done. I know they're planning to meet with what's his name? The Japanese pitcher who's coming over. Oh gosh.
Ohtani?
Yeah, him. Yeah. Roki Sasaki. So he's posted. The Rangers are going to meet with him in person. So we'll see what happens there. Apparently they feel like they've got a really good shot. We'll see. But at least we got Uvalde. So I'm pretty stoked about that. So, all right. Rosie, NFL Week 14. It's in the books. I don't have this on the outline, but I do kind of want to. I know it feels like it was forever ago, but Thursday night football, Lions 34, Packers 31. Your Lions, man, they're 12-1. They like Big Nuts Dan Campbell is just like, yeah, I'm going for every fourth down. I don't care if it works or not. That's just what we're doing.
Man, don't agree with the last one, but
I don't either. I don't either. It was a really fun game. Like it was very entertaining, and yeah, how does it feel? Because I've never had this feeling before. How does it feel like, and this is not me trying to jinx it, this is just going off of like Vegas odds, right? But how does it feel knowing like your team, you've got a month left in the season and like you're the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl?
I mean, it's unbelievable. Like coming from a Lions organization that was probably the worst in the NFL for like a decade, at least when I've been watching, and it's heartbreak after heartbreak, like Stafford, like giving you a little bit of hope for the rest of the team to take it away or the refs to take it away, stuff like that. This team, even in year one of Dan Campbell, felt completely different. Like it felt like the Lions curse was over even at that point, even when they weren't winning.
Yeah.
Just because you could see like what was being built and like the culture that they were like putting behind it and the never give up attitude.
Yep.
Along with like, okay, Brad Holmes, our GM, is actually hitting on these draft picks, which was not really a thing for the Lions in the past. They didn't hit on their draft picks. Now they're hitting on every single one, basically. So it's honestly completely wild that the Lions are having their best season ever in their whole organization history in the last like almost 100 years. And they're only one game away from being overtaken by the Vikings for the division.
Yeah. That's the crazy part is like the Lions just seem like this complete wagon, but it's happening in a year where the NFC, this is probably the strongest the NFC North has been as a division. Like
probably ever.
At least in my lifetime.
Yeah. And even the Bears, like they are, I mean, unless they're playing the Niners.
You don't have to put the Bears in this conversation.
You're right. Never mind. Never mind. I don't need to do that. But like there is no fraudulence about the Lions team. They have played basically every single game script and come out on top almost every time. They lost to the Bucks in overtime in week 2, and they're a good team. So they've gone like their schedule, if you look back, is kind of insane. Probably the hardest schedule I've seen a team play, considering the division. And coming out on top, I mean, they're not on top yet, but even winning these games, despite all the injuries, I think 18 players on a IR right now, which is the most in the NFL. Like, it's, I mean, just give Dan Campbell a lifetime contract.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be fine with it.
So I just pulled it up because I was curious because they're actually not first this year in against the spread record. So they're second. Denver and Pittsburgh are both 10-3, and then Detroit and the Chargers are 9-4 this year against the spread. But the thing that I think is crazy is they are first in margin of victory at 14.1. Second place is Buffalo at 9.9.
Wow.
So they
5
are
points on a scale like that is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and they're first against the spread, like margin of victory. They cover the spread on, and granted they're 9-4 against the spread, but they cover the spread at an average margin of 8.3 points. Next best is Buffalo at 6.7, so 2.5. So,
yeah, they've been blowing teams out.
Or 1.5 points. But it's crazy to watch because they seem, at least from my perspective, you being locked in on like Lions message boards and whatnot, maybe there's more, like maybe I'm incorrect in this, so tell me if I am, but it seems like they've cracked the code, and it's kind of like, the Chiefs, where everyone gets fed, but no one feels hungry. It's like you don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown throwing hissy fits when the ball doesn't go his way. He's out there laying a block for Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery. And it's like that takes organizational buy-in, especially with wide receivers, right? In order to have that sort of, I don't know.
And not just that, it's not even a thought that Amon or Sam Laporta or Jahmyr Gibbs or Montgomery, that they would be complaining about not getting the ball. Like, it's not even a thought that would occur. And I think this is kind of like exemplified by like the run blocking for the wide receivers that you're saying. I think Jameson Williams is second in PFF grade, and then Tim Patrick is fourth. So like they're getting in there. They don't care if like how they're getting the ball. They just want to help the team, and it's probably from the culture.
Yeah, the Lions are really good. It is crazy that they only have a 1-game lead on the Vikings. And
I'll say this now, just to cause a little bit of controversy.
Do it.
I think so. If they lose 1 game out of their next 4, they're playing the Bills, the Bears, the Niners, and the Vikings to round out the season. If they lose 1 game, they will still have the 1 seed in the division. If they lose 2, then it depends on to who, basically.
Is that because of like tiebreakers and whatnot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the tiebreaker with the Vikings would be since the Vikings lost to the Rams and the Lions beat the Rams, that's a similar opponent. So even if the Lions lost to the Vikings in the last week, they would still have that tiebreaker over the Vikings. So,
okay.
I think they will win the division and they will get the 1 seed. I'll say this now. I don't see the Lions winning the Super Bowl, though. Just because of Goff, for one.
He's been to a Super Bowl.
He has been to a Super Bowl. He's done well in a Super Bowl. He did well in the playoff run last year. I just don't think he has what it takes to beat Mahomes, beat Josh Allen, beat Lamar Jackson. I just don't think that he can do it. And I don't think that like Ben Johnson will be figured out. It hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going to happen. But that 5 interception game against the Texans, that exemplifies things. Like Goff is more than capable of doing that every single game that he plays. Like you watch him throw the ball and it's like, it's barely getting there sometimes. Even against the Packers on Thursday, he threw an awful interception, and he's just liable for that or fumbling. I think he leads the league in quarterback fumbles that have been recovered by his team. So it's just, I think he's been getting kind of lucky, to be honest. And he doesn't provide enough to the table to offset when luck goes bad. So I think going up against like a juggernaut, like someone from the AFC, I don't think that they can beat them in the Super Bowl.
Your relationship with Jared Goff is so funny because
I'm consistent,
like,
right?
yeah, you are, but it's like you're consistent, but you almost to a fault because you don't give an inch because you're afraid of like giving a yard, right? And it's like the Lions could win the Super Bowl and Goff could be Super Bowl MVP, and you're like, I don't know, man, he still makes me nervous.
That shouldn't be true, but you're absolutely right.
It's so true. They could win a Super Bowl this year and they could be like getting ready for the playoff run next year, and you're like, I just don't know if I trust Goff in a big game. And you're like,
Dude, you're exactly right. You just have to watch him play. I think you have to have like some context. Despite Goff, if they had any semblance of their defensive line that they did at the beginning of the season with Hutchinson and like Aleem McNeil's hurt right now, like the whole line is just practice squad players, and Zadarius Smith, who was not here 2 weeks ago. If they had
could Hutchinson return for the Super Bowl?
Could, I don't. They're talking about him returning for the NFC Championship, which he just started to learn how to walk again. Can we not rush him, please? Like, he's a generational pass rusher at this point.
Yeah.
I saw something on Twitter, not to make this about the Lions, this whole podcast about the Lions, but he is 4 pressures ahead of Trayvon Walker right now. And he's been out since like week 6.
Gosh. Oh, man.
But if they did have a defensive line, I think the rest of the defense is really, really good. So if like the defense could stand on its head for when Goff makes a mistake, then yeah, I think they're like a juggernaut team, and I wouldn't pick anyone to beat them. But in the Super Bowl, I'm not going to be picking them. If they
my only thing about that though, and we can wrap it up here because I know we have a lot more we want to cover. And this is not just a Lions podcast, but my only thing about the Lions in a potential matchup against, and I don't even want to think as far ahead as the Super Bowl, but really any crucial playoff game, is that I understand your concerns about Goff, but the offense, the offense can operate in a myriad of ways because of the personnel, because of Ben Johnson, because of the offensive line, that if you need to run the ball, eat up clock, dominate time of possession, keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline, you've got the guys to do it. Especially if you're doing that to kind of limit potential exposure from Jared Goff. And on the flip side, if you get into a shootout with Josh Allen or whatever, not saying Jared Goff is Josh Allen, but no other team in the league has the skill position players that the Lions have. I think in its totality, right? Like the fact that you've got both Gibbs and Montgomery at running back, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you've got Jamison Williams. I know Laporta has kind of been a non-factor, at least from a fantasy standpoint, he has been. But even if you just remove tight end and you just say, look at those 2 running backs and how they utilize them, and look at the 2 pass catchers you have, and even like Tim Patrick, like they can play a lot of different styles, and that's the kind of team you need to be successful in the playoffs. Because if you're a one-trick pony, like the coaches and the scouts and all the prep work gets dialed up significantly for playoff games, and they're going to figure out how to stop you. But if you're a 5-trick pony, just ride the pony that they're not game planning for. Like, you know what I mean? So that's where I would kind of disagree with you, because not saying I'm going to pick them right now to win the Super Bowl, but I think they absolutely could win a Super Bowl.
They're going to be hard to beat. I'm excited for this week against the Bills. I think that's going to be a real test. Not saying that the Packers and other good teams haven't been a real test. I think the Bills are just on another level, to be honest.
And
just with Josh Allen,
if the Lions get the 1 seed, Goff will never have to play outdoors. all the NFC games will be in Detroit. Super Bowl will be in New Orleans. Won't ever have to play outdoors, which is a big plus.
And I'll tell you what, I think the team that I'm most scared of is I don't want them to be playing the Eagles in Philadelphia.
Totally.
I think that could be a recipe for disaster.
Totally. So, all right. Okay. Let's actually stay in the NFC because I think, well, yeah. We'll stay in the NFC for now, and then we can bounce around. But I want you to call your shot right now of who the 7 seed is going to be in the NFC when the season's over, because it seems right now that it's basically a 2-team race between the Commanders, who currently hold it at 8-5, and then the Rams are at 7-6. Yes, you've got the Falcons, Cardinals, and Niners at 6-7. I'm not really giving them a chance. They would have to win. They would have to surpass the 2-game lead that the Commanders have with 4 games to go. And I kind of see that as being challenging, to say the least, especially because you look at the Panthers schedule, they've got the Saints this week, and then the Eagles, and then the Falcons and the Cowboys to close it out. So that 3-1 is a very real possibility for them, which then puts all those other teams out of reach of that 7 seed. Say all that to say, the Rams won a thrilling game against Buffalo. They're now 1 game back. I don't know who holds the tiebreaker and a potential tie between those two. I'd have to look that up. But call your shot. Who's the 7 seed in the NFC?
Who was the other option that you said?
The Rams.
Besides the Commanders, Rams.
Rams are 1 game back. They're 7-6, and the Commanders are 8-5.
I really do think the race for the NFC West is tighter than the race for the 7 seed. I think the Commanders have that locked up pretty well.
You think so?
Yeah, they play the Saints next week. I'm going to chalk that up as a W. And then the Eagles, that's going to be a tough win. But then it's Falcons, Cowboys. I think they easily handle both of them at this point.
Okay. So you're going with Commanders. I'd probably go with Commanders too. Because it is. I don't know. They did worry me a little bit how they had lost 3 straight and then they just went and stomped on the Titans. But then again, it's the Titans. But I do like Jaden Daniels. I think Dan Quinn's got that defense, humming. So
I do think they'll be 1 and done though. I think they'll make the playoffs and get bounced just because.
But a Philly Commanders matchup would be interesting.
Yeah,
because that's what it'd be right now. That'd be 2-7.
Right. Yeah, Philly crushed them last time they played. Hoping that they can bounce back. We'll see how good of a coach Dan Quinn is. Not this week, but next week against the Eagles to see how he bounces back. But I want to see all the NFC West teams in the playoffs. Like, they're all fun.
I don't really want to see
the
Niners in the playoffs.
They're good though. They're good.
I don't know.
It's just I think they've been getting a little bit unlucky, like losing in their 1-score games when they have a high probability of winning. Injuries where Ayuk is going to be gone for the year and CMC is going to be gone for the year, but they should get Nick Bosa back and then Trent Williams should come back too. Those are 2 big parts. They crushed the Bears.
Yeah, they did.
Unless Stafford goes off, I imagine the Niners are going to win on Thursday. So I think it's close.
All right. Yeah. I'm with you. Like, I'm with you on the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Rams. Because I think those are like 3 of the most high variance teams where you get in a playoff game and any one of those 3 teams could look like the greatest show on turf, right? but any one of those three teams could also look like, a top 5 pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah. Yep.
And you truly don't know week to week what you're
Seriously.
getting. So that is exciting.
I think if Puka doesn't keep falling from the ceiling and almost breaking his leg or shoulder or whatever, I think that he and Stafford can carry the Rams to the division title. They played the Seahawks in Week 18, but I think it's close between all these teams, to be honest.
I do too. You're right. That is the only other aspect that I think is still, I mean, yeah, it's up for debate, or it's still up in the air in terms of who's going to win the NFC North, but like all three of those teams are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of who's going to be hosting a playoff game versus who's going to be traveling. So speaking of one of the NFC North opponents for your Lions, Trent's Vikings. So Sam Darnold, best game of his career on Sunday. They are now 11-2, and it just, I've been guilty of this on this podcast the last few weeks, and I don't even know if I'm willing to kind of change this stance, but I said, hey, I think the NFC in terms of Super Bowl contenders, it's Detroit and Philly, and the other teams, whether it's Minnesota or Green Bay, like they can get to an NFC championship game, but I think that's kind of where their limit is. I don't think that they can get beyond that and actually be in the Super Bowl. Again, I don't know if I'm ready to change that, but they're 11-2. The offense looked incredible. The defense has been great all year long, and they have now won 6 straight. They close out the season Bears, Seahawks, Packers, Lions. And I don't know, man. You got Kevin O'Connell commanding that offense. You got Brian Flores commanding that defense. I think this team could actually make a lot of noise in the playoffs, and could upset a Detroit or a Philly because of the style of football that they play, to where that defense can absolutely wreck a game. And if you're able to get like the most out of Sam Darnold, I think this offense can hang with anyone.
Yeah, I was really down on them in the offseason, which was kind of weird because I was like, I really like all their pieces. Like, I think Brian Flores is a huge upgrade from who they had last year. What was his name? Donatel.
Yes, Ed Donatel.
That's a huge upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked the guys that they brought in as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like Van Ginkel has been amazing.
Yep.
I love the Stephon Gilmore signing. Yep. He hasn't been like amazing, but he's a viable cornerback. And then like their offensive line, like Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in the league. Addison was my favorite wide receiver of that class. Like, he's awesome. So it's like, why was I doubting them? It was because of Sam Darnold. I didn't think that Sam Darnold was that good. He's proved to be better than what I was thinking that he was.
Yeah.
Can he, in the heat of the moment, though, play a couple good games in the playoffs against really good teams like the Eagles, like the Lions, even like the Packers? I don't know if he can string multiple games together. Like, he's had a really good season. Like, he hasn't looked awful at all. But, last week he's playing the Falcons. Falcons have probably one of the worst defenses in the league. They get the least amount of pressure. Their cornerback play is awful. Can't tackle. You can do whatever you want. And the Vikings all year, I don't want to say that they've been lucky. Don't want to say that at all. Please don't misunderstand what I'm hearing, especially Trent, if you're listening. Because
don't put in the papers that I said the Vikings are lucky.
Right. Like a couple years ago when they lost to the Giants and got bounced right away from the playoffs, that was a lucky team. Like, they shouldn't have been there. They weren't that good. They are definitely very, very good this year. But they've been in some really favorable game scripts. Like, they get fumbles like right off the bat. Like, Their turnover differential is kind of crazy. I think they have the most penalty yards in the league.
Yeah,
Um,
you know that it's gone bad when we've got Trent sending spreadsheets in the group text.
Yeah,
And I was like, what is going on? That's why I just had to call him a nerd because I've been called a nerd by him so many times
I
for
thought that was
posting the
appropriate.
exact
Yeah.
same things. It's like, who are you? Yeah.
And it's not like the refs have been slanted toward, like, that's not a thing at all. It's not happening. But they have been getting a lot of calls. They have been getting turnovers like crazy. Have been in good game scripts. If Darnold is in a bad game script, I don't know if he can come back. Like, we just haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well,
So good, very good. I don't think they're a
have
great
we not
team.
seen it?
I
Has
mean,
he
I can
not?
pull up their schedule, but
Hold on, let's see. NFL come from behind wins. Fourth quarter comebacks. Okay, I don't want. Let me just go to Sam Darnold. View comebacks. Here we go. I'm just seeing if he's had any so far this year. This says that he's had 4. So the win against Jacksonville, which was an ugly game, right? No touchdowns, 3 interceptions. They won that game 12-7.
wouldn't say that was an endorsement on him.
He had a game-winning drive against Chicago in Week 11, won that game 30-27. Game-winning drive against Arizona in Week 12, won that game 23-22, and then technically had a game-winning drive against Atlanta this past week. I know it became more than a one-score game by the end of it, but that was because of kickoffs and all that stuff.
Okay.
So I understand your point that you're not going to really trust Sam Darnold in a January playoff game, but the one thing that I'll say, which is like similar to my point about the Lions, is that the coaching is so good.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
And the coaching makes such a difference because Sam Darnold, even when he makes a mistake or whatever, he is playing with such confidence that I think that does matter, especially in those tight game scenarios to where, yeah, if he throws a pick in the first quarter on the opening drive of a playoff game in January, at prior stops, he would completely unravel. Where now with Kevin O'Connell, I don't think he will.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Excited to see how JJ McCarthy looks next year.
I am too. Okay? So
no, Darnold is not staying in.
Darnold wins a playoff game.
No, there's no way. There's no way that because Darnold would be asking for a massive contract or massive compared to like his body of work. I don't think the Vikings are going to do that when they drafted JJ and he looked good in training camp and in the preseason.
I'm going to call Trent. I know he said he couldn't be on tonight. I do need to get his opinion on this contract thing. Okay. Let's see. I don't know if he'll pick up.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, we're talking Vikings and we're talking Sam Darnold, and we needed your input.
He's not coming back.
What if he wins a playoff game?
No.
What if he wins a Super Bowl?
No.
No chance.
There's zero chance that Sam Darnold is on the Minnesota Vikings next year.
Wow. Okay. I'm regretting calling you now, but I appreciate your input.
If he wins a Super Bowl, he's going to demand $30 million, and they don't have that money because they gave it to Justin Jefferson. Their entire 5-year plan is based on paying a quarterback minimum amount of money.
Okay. All right. Well, that helps.
Does he know he's agreeing
Yep.
with me?
Do you? So this is worth clarifying. Rosie wanted me to let you know. Do you know that you're agreeing with Rosie right now?
I mean,
I don't know if that
no
changes
ball, no
anything.
ball.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. There you have it. No chance.
Nope.
I still think there's a chance.
No, not gonna happen.
All right, real quick. So we talked about Minnesota, Pittsburgh. In a completely different way, they kind of feel like the Vikings and Pittsburgh are just the same team in each conference, where they keep winning games and they keep looking really good and winning games in different ways, whether it's defensive battles, whether it's a shootout, whether they just win by kicking field goals against the Ravens. Like they keep figuring out ways to win to where now they are 11-2, or are they 10-3? Hold on. Do you know?
Nope.
10-3, 10-3 atop of their division. I don't know what to make of them. Like I wouldn't have thought they had a chance to win a playoff game, and now I'm like, well, could they be in an AFC championship? I don't know.
I did not like them. I thought the vibes were really bad in the offseason. Like, oh, who's going to be our quarterback? Russell Wilson or Justin? Like, I didn't think that they improved that much, especially like their offensive line has been bad for a really long time. They've never been able to run the ball since Roethlisberger left. I didn't think that Russell Wilson was going to come in and fix this.
Yeah, who would have thought?
I mean, he has he opens up the passing game really well, like better than Fields does. Like he can throw it, like he still has his deep ball, and then Pickens is like the perfect wide receiver for him. And honestly, Mike Williams is the perfect wide receiver for him too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, do you buy this in the playoffs? I don't think I do. Like, they can win in multiple ways. They can win on the ground. They can win in the air. Their defense is very, very good. I just don't think that they have like this, like the superpower, you know? They don't have the superpower to get to the Super Bowl. Oh, that's clever, isn't it?
I like that. Okay.
Like who is that guy other than maybe TJ Watt?
Yeah. Is it weird to say Chris Boswell?
I mean, no. He's great. He really is.
Having like the most reliable, best kicker does matter in the playoffs.
It's honestly how they've been winning thus far. Is Boswell has hit literally everything.
Literally everything.
And that is so valuable, especially when like the Steelers have been struggling in the red zone. Like, to just guarantee yourself 3 points is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's like, you make a good point, but that feels like a regular season thing, not a
and maybe
thing.
that tells
Like,
us
that's
all we
not
need to
playoff
know.
football.
That my counter is, well, what about their kicker? Like,
right.
Maybe that's the answer.
That's true.
Maybe that's the answer.
So
now, if they're able to get the 2 seed, they can get to an AFC championship, because then they don't have to leave Pittsburgh until potentially a game against Kansas City in the AFC championship game.
Yeah, I can see them winning ugly games. So their rest of season schedule: Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals. And we'll see if the Bengals are even trying at the end. But
if they win 2 out of the 3, because you didn't mention, but Eagles and Ravens are on the road, and Chiefs are at home. If they win 2 out of those 3, then I think you have to consider them a legitimate threat in the AFC.
yeah, I completely agree.
And maybe it's unfair for a team who's 10-3 be like, well, I need to see a little bit more, but I do kind of need to see a little bit more.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to hit on from like week 14 or like current NFL before we get into fantasy stuff? We've got a few other things on the topic, but I do want to make sure we spend enough time on the other fantasy football related things that we want to cover. So I'll kind of what's like the one last thing that you're like, hey, got to get this off my chest, got to make sure we cover this, or is there not anything?
You have some great topics, so this is your fault, but I feel like we have to talk about Bills and Rams because that was probably the best game of the year. That was so good.
That game,
Josh Allen, why can't Josh Allen and Stafford play every single year?
yeah,
that would be great television.
it's so good.
Those are like my two favorite quarterbacks because there's the same person, except Josh Allen can run. They're just
two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the people saying that Josh Allen shouldn't be MVP because he lost this game, that's absolutely ridiculous. He didn't lose this game. He won this game. It's just defense fell apart and Stafford was just as good as Josh Allen this week.
This game single-handedly ruined your preseason bet of Josh Allen under 9.5 rushing touchdowns because
oh no.
So I've been keeping track of all of our bets and seeing how, whether or not they're going to hit. And he was at 6 going into this game. And you thought, okay, so he needs 4 in the next 5 games. Like, you feel pretty good about that. Now he's at 9 and he's got 4 games to go.
Well, the thought was there. I didn't think, one game he's going to have 6 total touchdowns. That's
yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's ever been done in the NFL before. Is 3 rushing, 3 passing?
I don't think it had. I thought I saw a stat that said that was the first time ever. Yeah.
Well,
although the even though the Bears game was gross, that actually kept alive my long shot, which was 17-1 odds, and it was DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and Cole Kmet each with 5+ receiving touchdowns. Because going in to that game, it was DJ Moore and Keenan Allen were already at 5, Cole Kmet was at 3, and Rome was at 1, and he caught 2 touchdowns.
2. Yeah.
So now I just need Kmet and Rome to each get 2 touchdowns over the next 4 games, and it cashes.
Yeah, I need Kmet to get some touchdowns too.
Yeah. Preferably, let's have him get 2 this week. That'd be great.
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Move you on.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that game was a lot of fun. I do think Josh Allen is the MVP. I think if the Bengals won maybe 4 more games than what they currently have, you'd have a legitimate conversation between Burrow and Allen because
yes,
Burrow has done is just outstanding, but you got to have the wins. Unfortunately for him, that's just kind of the way the award goes.
Yep. And you have, can't wait to see the signature Josh Allen pass to himself highlight.
I know
when he had Amari Cooper pitch it back to that's just that's Madden cover material right there.
Yeah, no, totally. So no, that game was great. The only other thing that I have is that vibes are bad in Dallas when the Cowboys are currently underdogs to the Carolina Panthers.
Hey, Bryce is looking great.
He is. And I'm loving that. I'm really, really happy for him.
It's really good for my
should have beat the Eagles if Leggett catches that ball.
That's ridiculous. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Leggett. That was his 4th drop in the game.
Yeah. 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 Bryce Young has been great. Yeah, Cowboys are 1.5 point underdogs to Carolina, which is just hilarious. Gosh. All right. Fantasy football. So the playoffs are starting. There's been a lot of not even lessons learned, because I think this is kind of the beauty, but also the horror of fantasy football, in the fact that so much of it is unpredictable. We can look at all the rankings. We can crunch all the numbers. You can follow every beat writer and absorb all the training camp nuggets. And at the end of the day, like your fantasy season could ride on, Garendo becoming the starting running back for the Niners, scoring 2 touchdowns and getting you into the playoffs. Like it's a stupid thing that we sign up for every year, but gosh, is it fun. But we want to highlight a few things that we wish we knew before the season, and I can go first. And my first one is I wish I knew that the Jets were going to be worse than any dumpster fire you could possibly imagine. They are so depressing. The vibes are so bad. There's no fantasy relevance. Like they managed to make Garrett Wilson a bummer to have in fantasy, which I did not think was possible. Breece Hall has something's wrong with his knee. He didn't play. Aaron Rodgers has been awful. And I think all but one of us picked the Jets to make the playoffs. Like vibes were great going into this year. Now you've got Aaron Rodgers. The head coach has been fired. The GM has been fired. I wish I would have known before I was drafting Breece Hall, trading for Garrett Wilson, all the things. Like I thought Rodgers was like a sneaky good, like late, QB2 in a super flex. Like you could get him late and there was legit upside, and he's been bad. Like I don't know where you're at, but I wish I would have been able to just see through all the noise and be like, no, they're still the Jets. They're going to be bad. Let's just kind of avoid them like the plague.
Well, you didn't remember my season takeaways from a couple of years ago. It can always get worse. Oh, Zach Wilson is leading the worst offense that this league has ever seen. It's not automatically going to get better because Aaron Rodgers is. And I don't even think Aaron Rodgers has been playing like that bad. It's just little things every single week go wrong. Like he missed Garrett Wilson wide open in the end zone 2 weeks ago against the Seahawks when they were up by like 20 points or whatever. I'm exaggerating.
Yeah, no.
But like stuff like that happens every single week. And like it's because there's no coach there. The coach is Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers wants to do his slant crossers and back shoulder balls, and that's how they move the offense.
Yeah.
And their offensive line
promote his documentary about his trip to Egypt on Pat McAfee.
Wild. Like their offensive line hasn't really improved since Zach Wilson was there, and that offensive line got Zach Wilson killed. Like, honestly, I think the offensive line was more of the reason why they didn't have offensive success than Zach Wilson, just because he was getting pressured on every single drop back. But that being said, Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 6 right now. So it's like, it's not.
It doesn't feel like it though, does it?
No, it doesn't. And my main takeaway for the season was going to be, you just shouldn't draft in the first round. Like, why bother? Like, everyone sucks. Like, Tyreek, awful season. Who was the Breece Hall?
Yeah, Breece Hall. Remember him?
Horrible. Like the guys that have done well, just you drafted in the second or third round, or it's been like completely unpredictable. My wide receiver 1 was Jamar Chase, so that's looking really good. But even that, like, he's only come on second half of the year, really.
But he's still the wide receiver 1.
Yeah, it's just been a poor fantasy year. So honestly, next year, if you get to choose your spot in the draft, you might just want to go like at the end of the draft, just because then you can get 2 potential studs instead of, 1 maybe. Like there's no like dominant player like CMC or
Here's the
Calvin
thing,
Johnson
man.
or Antonio Brown. Like that guy doesn't exist.
I think there is an answer. If you got a first overall pick in any draft, whether it's next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it doesn't matter who the running backs are. It doesn't matter like all the hype in the preseason, any movement. Just take Justin Jefferson. You're going to be happy. Like, barring any injury, like he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver, and most likely he's going to be first or second. And that's what you want. And like even this year, he's wide receiver 2 behind Jamar Chase. Last year, he only played 10 games, still wide receiver 29. And then the 3 years before that, he was a wide receiver 1. This is all half PPR, by the way. Wide receiver 1, wide receiver 4, and wide receiver 5.
The point differential, though, between Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson is hilarious.
This year?
Yeah, Chase has 322 fantasy points. At second place, Justin Jefferson has 239. And then third is Amon at 231. Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah, and if you want to take Jamar Chase, that's fine too. Like, I think they're both safe bets. I mean,
the difference is the quarterback. Like Joe Burrow is way better, and
Yes.
their defense. I honestly, actually, scratch that quarterback talk. It's the defense for the Bengals. It's so bad. It is not viable. They're giving up 30 points a game. So
here's a
you're
stat
gonna have to
about
get into shootouts.
Jamar Chase. This helps your argument. This was after the Monday night game against Dallas with 14 catches, 177 yards, and 2 scores. This is from Ben Solak at ESPN. Jamar Chase is the first receiver with 10 plus catches, 175 plus yards, and 2 plus touchdowns in a game since Jamar Chase did it in week 10 against the Ravens, who was the first receiver to do so since Jamar Chase did it in week 5 against the Ravens.
He blows up, man.
He's done it 3 times. 10 plus catches, 175 plus yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's
That's
insane.
absurd. That's absurd. All right. What's your thing you wish you knew before the season?
Well, it was not to draft any first round players, but I have another one.
Give us another one. Yeah.
I kind of wish I had stuck to my priors a lot more than I did, because I feel like I was right. What I like to do is, I have my own opinion, and then I base that, what is everyone else saying? And then I meet in the middle. I feel like I shouldn't do that. Like, I drafted Rachaad White, even though I did not like him, just because Bucky Irving's not going to be a thing. Like, I like Bucky, but there's no way that he's going to be a thing his rookie year. Like, it's just not possible. He's great. Bucky's great. Rachaad White, he might be viable in the playoff run because Bucky's hurt, but going forward, Rachaad White will not be a thing. Tyrone Tracy, I drafted him in several leagues because I was like, this guy, he's really talented. He's going to go off. But then I dropped him after a few weeks. I was like, well, he's a rookie. Singletary's looking good. I'm not going to get hurt by this. And Tyrone Tracy's looking like possibly a league winner if the Giants didn't suck so bad. ETN. Maybe these are just all running backs. I hated ETN.
Yeah.
Biggest ETN hater. I drafted him anyway in a league. Just because I like Tank, but he was literally the worst running back in the NFL last year. Like, by advanced stats. Tank Bigsby. And now Tank Bigsby is looking like the guy in ETN. Probably the worst bust all year.
Yeah.
So,
well, I wouldn't go that far, but he hasn't been good.
I mean, you can't even you haven't been able to play him in like after week 2.
I know it's injury related. But I think the clear answer is Christian McCaffrey, because none of us knew that he had an Achilles problem when he was drafted, and he missed basically the whole year.
I guess I mean like performance-based bust. It's been ETN. Like, he's been the worst.
All right, I've got a take that'll come out that'll kind of ride the coattails of that, but keep going.
I had something else, but I don't remember. So go ahead.
Well, so just finish the point. So you wish you would have just kind of trusted your gut on these players and not been swayed by conventional wisdom.
Buy into how you feel about these guys. And I honestly, more importantly, for rookies, especially rookie running backs, you have to hold on to them like at least halfway through the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to, because of course they're probably not going to show anything the first few weeks. Yeah. And, you're not dropping them for bad players, but just make sure that you can either get them back, like be the first one to get them back, like if they show any sign at all, or just don't drop them at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the rookie thing is a good point. And this wasn't even going to be one of my things, but we can make it quick. I think with rookies and fantasy football, it is so important to, and this actually will segue into one of my actual things I wish I knew. Outside of a few exceptions, it is so important to keep level expectations. And like the classic example was this year, like look at how high Marvin Harrison Jr. was getting drafted. And you looked at the draft value in terms of that position and fantasy draft value, right? He would have had to been like far and away the best rookie wide receiver in history to justify that draft spot. And it's like, if he is a little bit lower than that expectation, then you overdrafted him. And he was going like late first, mid second round in redrafts. And it's absurd. And I think you just have to you have to kind of see through the noise, and you have to understand that these are rookies and like they're going into situations with grown men, and especially with stubborn coaches who it takes a long time for rookies to earn their trust. And I think that is just, that is worth remembering. Yeah,
I had Marvin Harrison a lot lower, even though I love the talent. Drafted him in a dynasty league really, really high because I thought he was a surefire thing. And his performance just has me questioning things. But then at the same time, you have to look at the other rookies. Like Malik Neighbors he was incredible. And then he started getting a little bit injured, but he was a top 5 wide receiver. He was justifying Marvin Harrison, his draft spot, with a worse quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brian Thomas has also been incredibly good. Ladd McConkey, he's earning his draft spot. Like he's far out paying. Like I think he had a 60% target rate when he played 2 weeks ago.
That's crazy.
Which is absolutely unheard of.
It's crazy.
So there is opportunity for these rookies. I always like to look at it like I'm buying low on them, though. Like if I have to shell out a 3rd round pick for a rookie wide receiver like Marvin Harrison, I would not do that. Like sure, he could justify that. I think Malik Neighbors has done that. But what are the odds of that? Not very high, I think.
Yeah, no, totally. So yeah, that's kind of, there is one exception to that whole conversation. And this is my next big thing that I wish I knew. And that is that I wish that I knew that Brock Bowers was going to be arguably the best tight end in the entire NFL as a rookie, Rosie. As a rookie. Do you know? You probably know this because you're checked out. Who leads the NFL in receptions?
Is it Brock Bowers?
It is Brock Bowers.
That's insane.
This is not who leads rookies in receptions. This is not who leads all tight ends in receptions. This is who leads in receptions across all positions, all this qualifiers, everything. It's Brock Bowers.
Yeah, Laporta broke the reception record last year for a rookie tight end at 87, I think. Brock Bowers has already passed that.
Yeah, with a month to go. Yeah.
That being said, I might try.
Okay,
so.
sorry. Let me clarify. Bowers was on a bye this week, so Jamar Chase now has 6 more receptions than him. So it's Chase with 93, Bowers with 87.
He was on a bye?
Weren't they? No,
don't
they
think so.
weren't. They weren't on a bye, but Chase did surpass him. So, we want to be accurate here making the call. So he's 6 behind Jamar Chase, but still. And it's like, I know.
Are you
that
gonna bring
Vegas-
this to Pitts?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm not. I know that Vegas has no one else to throw the ball to, but I will say, crappy quarterback play. The defense knows they're going to Bowers, and he still is producing. He's still racking up these stats, and he does everything well at the tight end position. He's a good run blocker. He's a good pass blocker. We have to stay in line. He runs all the route tree. Like his hands are incredible. He's good after the catch. Like he's getting separation. He legitimately, like, I think he is the best tight end in the NFL, and he's a rookie. And I didn't think that was going to be possible, but I think that's where we're at.
In Dynasty, I would sell high.
You would.
Yeah.
Why?
He's great. He really is. Like he's everything. Like he's better than Laporta. Like he's definitely one of the best tight ends in the league. But if you're in a tight end premium and you can get like a first round startup pick, like equivalent of that, I would jump on that just because Michael Mayer's been hurt all year long and he came back like.
Yeah, but Michael Mayer is not.
No, he's definitely not. Like Brock Bowers will be better than him. Absolutely. 100%. It's just, I think that there are going to be these games where Mayer will out target him. This Raiders team is still not good. Like you don't want these guys that are on awful teams. Like, and the Raiders are one of the worst teams in the NFL. And I don't see them getting better next year. So if you could, turn them into, package them with Trevor Lawrence and get Josh Allen or, something like that, I would absolutely do that.
No. Because here's one of my rules in fantasy is that fantasy at the end of the day, like, is fun. Like it's supposed to be fun. And fantasy is so much more fun when you've got fun players. And Brock Bowers is a fun player. Like he's someone to where like I'm having more fun having him in my lineup and seeing him make these crazy one-handed catches and run people over than I would be with like a first round pick. You know what I mean? Now, the example you gave of, okay, if you can package him for Josh Allen, sure, because Josh Allen is like the like.
I don't mean a rookie first round pick. I mean like a startup, like top 12 players.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. How old is he? He's 21.
He looks like he's 35.
Yeah, but he's 21. So like, can you get you could have Bowers for a decade.
Yeah. We don't have to keep
all right.
going on this.
Yeah. What's the next thing you wish you knew?
I don't have anything else.
No?
Do you have another one? Because I can try to look for like a specific player.
Mine was just kind of going off of our Vikings discussion, which is that I wish I knew that all the Vikings, including Sam Darnold, were just going to be awesome. Like Darnold, extremely fantasy relevant. I think he's, hold on. On the season total fantasy points, he is 7th. You look at even Aaron Jones at running back. I know he's missed some time, But even with that, he's the RB 15 in half PPR. You look at wide receivers, Jefferson is RB or wide receiver 2, and even Jordan Addison is wide receiver 16. So they've got a QB1, an RB2, a wide receiver 1, and a wide receiver 2 on the same team. And I did not expect that. Like, I knew Jefferson was going to be great. I was a little unsure what he was going to look like with Darnold. I did not expect this from Darnold. And Addison has been great, especially the last few weeks. And Jones has been, for the most part, pretty solid. So I wish I would have known that going into the year.
Okay, then to balance that out, I have a -1. I think I wish I knew the Chiefs' offense wasn't going to be anything special.
Yeah.
Going into the season, I if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, you would know that I'm a historic Josh Allen over Mahomes in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I switched that just because, he's throwing to his best weapons that he's had since Tyreek Hill. Offensive line, they've upgraded. And, why can't he throw for 5,000 yards? I don't see any reason why Mahomes couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not. He just hasn't been very good, to be honest. He hasn't been good on the field, and then in fantasy, he's been a middling quarterback.
Yeah, no, the Chiefs.
And then Kelsey hasn't even
at all.
Kelsey hasn't sniffed tight end 1. He's just not. He's not doing it.
No. And I think, some of it's injury related, right? Like, I think if Rashee Rice was healthy,
oh yeah,
he was a legitimate fantasy threat. Especially look at some of the target share numbers from those first few weeks. It was kind of absurd. I expected more from DeAndre Hopkins, to be honest with you. Especially that first game when he had 11 targets or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, we're getting this, but it hasn't been that.
Yeah,
it's a bummer.
He hasn't been bad. It's just middling. I mean, the whole team's been middling, even the running backs, and even Pacheco, when he gets fully up to speed, I think he will be middling as well. I don't think any of them are going to win you any leagues.
The last one that I've got, and then we can move to league winners, is I wish I knew that CJ Stroud and Kirk Cousins were just kind of going to suck. I had really high hopes for CJ Stroud this year. I thought he was going to be in that kind of, honestly, from fantasy standpoint, I thought he was going to be in that Burrow category where it's he doesn't run, but he's such a prolific pocket passer. And you looked at the weapons with Diggs and Collins and Dell. And again, I know injuries is a big story there, but even when he's had the guys, he has not looked as good as he did last year. It looks like the league has adjusted to him and he has not adjusted back. And when you're talking about biggest fantasy busts, I know he wasn't drafted nearly as high, but Stroud was one of the guys who came to mind of maybe a counter to your point, because I thought and it's almost like as an extension of the entire Houston Texans, because I think we were all so high on the Texans, and it's Joe Mixon has been awesome. Nico Collins, when he's been healthy, has been awesome. Tank Dell has been a massive bummer. CJ Stroud has been a massive bummer, and Diggs is hurt. So,
yeah, he's the one that I was going to, when I said that, I forgot what I was going to say. It was going to be Stroud. My priors on Stroud are looking like they're coming true. I didn't really like him coming out. I thought his offensive line was really bad, and that played into his weaknesses. And we didn't see that in his rookie year. So I was like, well, I guess I was wrong. We're seeing it this year. He hasn't been awful. He hasn't been a bad quarterback per se, but there's no reason that he should be not as amazing as he was last year. And his weapons are really suffering for it. Tank Dell's really suffering for it. I don't think Tank Dell's healthy from his broken leg either, to be honest.
No, I don't
Tony
either.
Pollard from a couple years ago. But that's just been kind of sad to see.
Yeah. All right. League winners. Go.
So I'll make this quick just because we're running kind of long. I was going to do here's some best players of the position, but who cares, because you're going to have these guys. So I tried to find some maybe waiver wire guys that you get in
okay.
redraft. At running back, Sincere McCormick. He's a rookie for the
Yeah.
Raiders. Or maybe not a rookie.
He's not a rookie, but he's now the starter.
Yeah, he's a starter. He has looked good. He has awful like measurables and speed and all that stuff, but he's looked pretty good. And he was getting 61% of the snaps last week against Tampa Bay. He replaced Amir Abdullah, who like was kind of their darling when Madison went down. Madison might be coming back, but they play the Falcons, the Jaguars, and the Saints at the end of the year. So I think if you're desperate, like when I have Kenneth Walker, Brees Hall, Bucky Irving, all those 3 running backs hurt, Sincere McCormick might be a guy that you want to be playing. I have one at each position.
I sincerely agree with you.
Okay, Dad. So next guy, we have Isaiah Likely. He hasn't been spectacular this year. Him and Mark Andrews have been like flip-flopping who's good, who's not, who catches a touchdown, who doesn't. But honestly, at the tight end position, if you don't have like a good option like McBride, Bowers, those guys.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Kittle, maybe.
You want to be playing a guy like Isaiah Likely who can go off for 31 points like he did in week 1. He is an athletic freak. He's playing around 50, 60% of the snaps. He can turn any play to a long touchdown. You want guys like that on your fantasy team, and you could probably pick them up if you're really hurting at tight end. Let's see. Then we got Adam Thielen, of course, back from the dead. We have raised his corpse yet again. Last 2 weeks, so he's been incredible.
Last 2 weeks, he's got like 10 targets each week, I think.
Yep. 11 targets last week, 9 catches for 102 and no touchdowns. Week before that, 10 targets, 8 catches, 99 yards and a touchdown. He can win you your league. Like legitimately, like Adam Thielen can win you your league. They're playing Dallas, Arizona, Tampa Bay. Incredible matchups.
Yeah.
Bryce Young he's looked fantastic, finally. He's looked really good, and they don't have anybody else, especially when Leggett keeps dropping balls. So Adam Thielen at 34 years old, I think he can win you your league. And then the last guy, Bo Nix, guy I was wrong about, looks like he's been very, very good.
It's time to believe.
And you're just on it.
Oh, that's my dog. Dirk, hey. All right, keep going.
He's the quarterback 8 right now on the season. He plays the Colts, great matchup. Chargers, bad matchup. So maybe you don't want to play him in week 16. But then the Bengals, who we've discussed before, probably the worst defense in the league. Bo Nix also, like if he's having a bad game, he's probably going to try to run. So like that just gives you a good baseline for your quarterback. And he might be, he's been really good this year, so maybe he's not available. But it's possible in one quarterback leagues that he's available on your waiver wire. And I would pick him up.
Yeah, Bo Nix has been awesome. I'm with you there.
That's it.
That's it. All right. Perfect. There's your league winners. Rosie, that's all I got. Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, just
no.
Wish me luck in my leagues. It's been a horrible injury year for most of my leagues. It's been drafted a lot of Godwin or Rashee Rice. So
yeah,
that tells you a lot.
It's one of those years. Well, wish me luck because you just had to boot your wife from the second Guillotine League. And I'm down in the top 4. So waivers will run tonight. We'll see if I snag anyone. Honestly, you don't tell her this, but her getting out is a massive win for the rest
Oh
of us.
yeah.
Because like the rest of us are pretty close as far as like remaining fab.
Yeah, no, she could have money whipped you guys, and
She could have.
yeah, it was sad to see Jaden Reed get completely shut down.
Yeah. So
And
there's
then I've made it so far in Guillotine League. Like I make these leagues for anyone that doesn't know. I've made 2 leagues for us, and they've been incredible fun for everyone other than me, because I get out like week 1 or week 2. But this is the first year that I've made it this far. Honestly, like past week 5.
Because you and Trent are both in the first one, right?
Yeah, we're in the first one.
Yeah.
There's 4 weeks left, I think. And my team's looking like a juggernaut. I got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Nico
gosh.
Collins.
Oh my gosh.
It's great.
Yeah, we'll see. It should be fun. This should be fun. All right. Dad joke this week. What do you call a moose with no name?
I don't know.
Anonymous.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Making the Call. Thank you, of course, to Rosie for being on this week. Thank you to everyone tuning in on the YouTube. And thank you to everyone who is watching the podcast, because we do the video on Spotify only. That is where we're going to have a poll. So go respond to that poll. We've also got it over on the Making the Call Twitter. You can respond there. Help Rosie out. Help him figure out,
I will abide by the poll.
He will abide by the poll.
I don't have to make a decision.
So if you're going up against Rosie, go stuff the ballot box. Try to manipulate it. Why not? Let's do it.
Sure.
But thank you everyone for tuning in and listening, watching, however you consume Making the Call. We greatly appreciate it. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of the week, and we will see you next time. Boom.
Great pod.